All right, guys, welcome to episode 1 of my channel, Balancing Family, Business, and Success. I'm super excited to get this channel started. It's been something, it's been in the makes for a while. and, life just kind of been, as everyone says, lifing. And so it's taken me a little bit to finally sit down, kind of map out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to share, and here we are. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Leneé Thomas. I am a 40-year-old mother of 4 children. Ages range from 9 to 21. And needless to say, we have a very full house. um, I currently am full-time entrepreneur, and a lot of my history I'm going to be sharing on this channel. Actually, I've it's been on my mind to do this, and for whatever reason, I've kind of been skating away from it. I do not like to be on camera. So if you guys watch the video and you get to a point and you're like, she does not look comfortable, probably because I'm not. I'd rather be on stage. I like to embrace people. I like to see their facial expressions. I like to just be around people. So me talking to a camera, I'm just like, okay. But you are going to get the real raw here. So anyways, getting back to me, I am a full-time entrepreneur. I do a couple different things. Real estate is half of what I do. I have a very strong real estate background. I'll get into that in a minute. The other half of what I do is professional development. So the markets that I typically work with are the collegiate as well as the corporate markets. And so we go in and I go in. I was, excuse me, this is an assistant that comes with me, but usually, it's just me doing the providing the actual service. So we cover a lot of topics, but typically it's motivational and leadership. And it's catered to, again, right now, the collegiate as well as the corporate markets. In addition to that, recently kind of branched back out into some government contracting. So that is maybe about a quarter of what the business operations entail currently. Real estate. So in regards to real estate, it's ingrained in me. It's a passion of mine, stemming back to my grandmother. My grandmother was a serial entrepreneur. She had at one point she had a funeral home, she had a car wash, and then she had several rental properties. And I remember being as young as 7, she had like a little convenience store that was connected to the car wash. And I remember on the weekends running her convenience store, little me. But I think that was kind of a segue into what the entrepreneurial world looked like, the opportunities that existed. Definitely started from a young age. And then little exposure to the funeral home. Might sound a little morbid, coming from a kid's perspective, but definitely learned a lot there as well. Rental. She had several rental properties in the area, in the town that we grew up in. So I spent a lot of time with her and her handyman, and just a lot of different people that she had around, and we would go. We would go to the houses, and a lot of her tenants, some were family, some were like family, but we were always close to them. So I could say probably at one point in time, she probably had anywhere from, I don't know, 10 or 12 properties. And again, this is a lady that was born in the 30s, went through the Great Depression and a lot of different historical events. So for her, a African American woman, to have achieved these sort of accomplishments, I think I can't remember when she stopped running the businesses, but let's say, 30 years ago, things were a lot different than what they are now. Now we see a lot of minority owned businesses. And so it's not as, what's the word I want to say? It's not as, it's more common now. And so that was kind of my exposure. And then my parents growing up were in dealt in real estate as well. It was more so on the landlord side. So for me, real estate looked like you're either, you fix and flip, or you are a landlord. Back then there weren't as many different creative styles as there are now. And so for me, I out of high school, I went straight into banking. I started at National City, met a lot of wonderful friends that I, to this day, can still call friends. One is a best friend. I remember my grandmother telling me back in the day, like, if you ever have one good friend, you're in good shape. And I'm fortunate to have several best friends. I have really good friends, and then I have best friends. And this one particular friend, I met her at when we worked at National City. So I think I was 19 when I met her, and what is she? 2 years older than me, so she would have been 21, I think, turning 22. But banking was my not kind of, it was my exposure into the corporate world. Prior to that, started working when I was about 15. Actually worked at MCL, still one of my favorite restaurants. And don't come for me. Don't come for me, because MCL has some really good food. I worked at, for those that are familiar with Lafayette Square Mall, that was where I worked at in Indianapolis. Met some really good people there as well. A couple that I'm still connected to. One in particular transferred when that store closed, transferred to another store. And she's still there to this day. My mom and my grandmother periodically go to the location that she works at. And I remember first telling my mom, and I'm not going to make this a long story because I know I'm getting sidetracked, but I remember telling my mom when she first came to MCL, she didn't speak any English. And so I helped her learn English on the work site. And Spanish is her native tongue. And I remember her coming, and the other people that spoke Spanish were back in the kitchen. And so we were in the front. And as soon as she found out that I, spoke Spanish, it was just like, she just became a whole different person. And so it was really fun. And then after that, I worked at a summer camp. And then I also did after school care at a sports complex called Sports Zone, also in Indianapolis. That was really fun. I worked at a grocery store. So I worked at Cub Foods, the best grocery store ever. What else did I do? Just a lot of like retail stuff. But honestly, banking was my, like I said, it was my segue into the corporate world. It was one of the best decisions that I made. I started with one manager, and then she left and went to, I think she stayed with the company, but she went to like the next town over. So then the second manager that I got, love her to pieces, love both of them. The second one, luckily I had more time working with her. So we were able to, she's actually still she's on my personal Facebook page. And so we still communicate. I've always considered both of them friends. But I can honestly say that she helped me immensely in the banking world. And without her, I don't think I would have had the success that I did. In fact, I know I wouldn't have. And so I attribute a lot of that to her. Like I said, I was at National City from August. Was it August? I was there like a year and a half, and they got fired. I had a quick story. I had a customer come in and wanted to do a cash advance, older lady. Again, I'm gonna preface this. This was back in 2003, probably late 2003. Came in to do a cash advance, and there was a scam that they were running at that time. And so she came in with a younger gentleman. Now, she was probably late 70s, early 80s. And so essentially she came in to do the cash advance. And what happened was the people that, or the actual bank customer, the actual bank customer, her purse had been stolen. And so what happened, they taped a picture of the lady that was in front of me on the ID. So the lady gave me like the wallet, you know, how you have a little clear piece of plastic. And so she showed it to me. Everything, you know, I'm looking at her, I'm looking at the ID, you know, everything matches. So I'm putting the stuff in. And I didn't, and from that moment on, I was the example in the branch. From that moment on, we had to take all, if we didn't know the customer, we had to take all identification, have the customer take the identification out, physically hand it to you, and then when you get it, you run your finger over the ID to make sure it wasn't taped on, make sure it wasn't glued on, make sure it wasn't, you know, you thoroughly and, you know, check the ID out. And so I took a $2,000 loss. I remember the exact dollar amount. And at that time, the manager that I was really close with, she had transferred from National City to Chase. And so it was her assistant manager had stepped in, and she and I didn't really get along. And that was her opportunity to get rid of me, and she did. And that was actually you know, it worked out in my favor as well. I tend to look at things that are not so not so pleasurable, and I you know, I don't necessarily look at it as a loss, so to speak, but it's more so of a lesson. So that was a lesson that needed to be learned at that time. But it was also a situation where one door closed, another two open. And once my old manager found out what happened, she was like, girl, she was like, come over to Chase. And I was like, really? And that was my entrance into Chase, which I worked there on and off 6 or 7 years. And I can say without a doubt, Chase was one of the best companies, the best banks that I worked for. And if you're familiar with the Indianapolis area, I worked at so many different branches. I started at 16th and Lyndhurst. I worked at Rockville and Girls, was Rockville? Yeah, Rockville and Girls School Road. I worked at 71st and Benford. I worked at 75th and Shadeland. I worked in Plainfield. I worked at, 141st in Carmel, 141st, 146th. And then there was one way out east. I want to say McCordsville, which I covered those branches from time to time, but I worked all over the city of Indy. Met a lot of, like I said, a lot of good people, a lot of great coworkers, some that I am still very friendly with. A lot of my customers in the bank, I still associate with them from time to time. I'll see them whether it's in person or in, you know, social media. But I can truly say banking helped sculpt me into the entrepreneur that I am. So, you know, the you know, the things that were instilled into me from grandmother to my parents, and then banking kind of polished it off, I'll say. I loved it. I loved it. I love the different branches. I did not care for getting robbed, which we actually, when I worked at National City, we had a period of, it was like 6 months. We were robbed like 3 times, and it was nothing for me but the grace of God that at the time I was also, so get this, I was a mom. So my daughter was, when I was finishing school, I think she was like 2 when I was finishing my associate's degree. And so I was at school full time, working part time. Being at school is what prevented me from being at any of the robberies. I remember pulling up to the branch when I got out of class one day, and there was like yellow tape and CSI vehicles, and I'm like, oh, we got robbed. And so, where did my light go? There it is. Okay. It's connected to, I'm sorry, guys. It's connected to my computer. There we go. Sorry. Which I got to keep I forgot because it's not actually plugged up to an outlet. It is plugged up to my computer. And my computer is, so hopefully I can edit this part, but if not, you know what happened. So that saved me from being in the branch when the few times that we got robbed, but I did get robbed at the other bank, and it was something. And maybe one day we'll talk about that. But I can tell you when I started in National City, I started as a teller. I moved up to a lead teller, coming over into Chase, transitioned into another teller role very shortly. I want more. I always challenge myself. And so it's like as soon as I set a goal out and I hit it, I'm on to the next. So it's like I already in my mind have to know what all it is that I want to do. And so went over to Chase. I told my manager, like, I want to be a banker. And she was like, I don't think you're outgoing enough. And I was like, I'm gonna show you. And that was all it took. Sometimes you need to have those conversations. And I can tell you, we sometimes, bumped heads a little bit, but everything, you see sometimes down the line why you had to go through different things. And I'm so grateful, like I said, to her for giving me the opportunity, and then for giving me another opportunity to come with her. She was like, I want you here. And I was like, okay. So I went there, started studying to get my license. But at the time we had a role that was called Sales and Service Associate. So you technically couldn't transition directly from a teller role into a personal banker role. I said, okay. And so I moved from the 16th to Lyndhurst. I moved to Girls School in Rockville Road. And there I was the SSA, Sales and Service Associate. And while there, I learned new things that would ultimately help me transition to a relationship banker role. And I think I was in the SSA role maybe about a year. And then I was the one that got robbed. And it was kind of it was a scary situation because it's, without going into too much detail, I wasn't a teller at all, but because I knew how to run the teller line, I was, for whatever reason that day, we were super short staffed. So I had to run the teller line inside of the branch, and then we had a detached drive up. So whoever was out there was running that, and I was the only person behind the line. And I think this was like a Friday. So Fridays we had a lot of business customers in that area. So, I'm preparing for, all the change orders, things like that. And I can tell you, like, it literally like just flashed right before my eyes. And I kind of freaked out a little bit, but it happened. He got whatever. But I knew that day, because I'm not a big crier. But I knew on that day, like, I'm out of here. This can never in life happen again. I was so adamant that it's crazy how, I don't know what happens now, but back then, the branch shuts down. Some of our upper management came out and they bought us pizza. So I'm not hungry. I'm going home. And that's what I did. I went home and I immediately got on my computer and I'm like, gotta find a new job. Gotta find a new job. Like, I didn't want to leave because I was on the journey or on the pathway to transitioning into this banker role. But I just knew that that was a very scary experience. My oldest daughter at the time was, well, that was in 2007 when I left. So she was 4. And I was like, I just thought like it's weird because until you're actually in that situation, you don't know what you'll do. You don't know what it feels like. But I literally, like, my life flashed before my eyes, and I was like, nah, I can't do this. Like, no, can't do it. And I'm at home. I think I took, matter of fact, I called, called my manager, and I just felt like he, I don't want to say was nonchalant, but it was just too, he was too lax for me for the, what had happened. And I was just like, no, I don't feel comfortable, coming back. And so I told him, I was like, I'm going to take some time off. And that's what I did. I took the time off and I was applying. And I think a day or two later, I got a call back. I got an interview. And ultimately, I ended up taking a role at Charles Schwab. I was like, yes, I'm out of here. Like, getting robbed is one thing, I feel like if you, I don't know. I mean, when you work in a bank that's a possibility. But I wasn't in a role that I should have been the direct person, so that's where things didn't really connect for me. And I was like, but we have tellers. Why was I over there? And it's again, it's all water under the bridge at this point, but it was just like my sign, like, you got to get up out of there. And I did that. I went over to Charles Schwab, came in on the customer service side, and I immediately knew I don't want to do customer service. I'm working for Charles Schwab. I want to be a stockbroker because that's what most of the people that work at Charles Schwab do. They're stockbrokers. And I was like, let me know customer service. But I was grateful for the opportunity. And I remember getting in, and there was a lady that worked there that I knew. And it's crazy because that's one thing with banking. I met so many people. And then my family, being a larger family and being from, the area, like, we've lived on all different sides of town, so we have a large network. And I remember one of the ladies there, her son, I think it was her son, played sports with one of my siblings. And I was like, hey, and so she was like, how you doing? And blah, blah, blah. We really hit it off. And I remember having a conversation with her as well as one of our trainers. And I was like, I want to get my license. They're like, okay, you can do that. You can absolutely do it. The caveat was, because I was hired in as a customer service rep, if I was going to get my license, I had to do it on my own, which means I had to do the self-study. They would essentially provide the study material, but I had to do my own studying. Whereas some of the other individuals that were hired in, that was a contingency of their role. Like, they had to, instead of the customer service aspect, they came in and they would study the whole day. So for me, it was a little different. And I remember getting the Series 7, 7 and 63, getting the study books. And I was like, I'm about to knock this out the park. Like, I need my license. That's what I want to do. I don't do customer service. So I think I did customer service for a few months. I can't remember how long, because I think I had to stay in that role for X amount of time. So maybe like 60, 90 days, something like that. So then I got my study books. And at the time, and you're talking about somebody who is always challenging. At the time, when I got the books, I was going to school at night full time. I was working at Charles Schwab during the day. I was pregnant with my second child, my second daughter. And then I was studying in whatever amount of free time that I had, studying to get my broker's license. So it was a lot going on. I think this was right around, she was born in '08. So this was like the beginning of '08. So when the stock market and the housing market tanked in the '07, '08 era, guess what industries I was in? Both of them. I was still, I had started to dabble in real estate, and then I was a stockbroker. So I ended up taking my 7, passed it. I remember coming back to the branch, and everybody, when you passed your test, they would announce on the loudspeaker in the call center. This was when the call center was in Fishers. I know it's moved since then. But they'd say, and we have, a new registered representative to add to, the group, and they say your name. And I remember one of my friends coming over to my desk, and she was like, "You passed that test?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Girl, how you passed that test?" And I'm like, "I studied. What do you mean?" And I'm going to tell y'all, for me, things that are hard for most people come crazy easy to me. But the easy things, when I say up and over my head, I just be like, huh? It's the hard stuff. The hard stuff, it just comes to me naturally. So I didn't have a problem. A lot of people had to take their Series 7 exam over and over and over. And I was not one of those people. Here's an example of what I just said about the difference between the hard things and the easy things. My Series 63, which is about state law and a lot of the nowhere near, my 63 book was 50 pages maybe. My Series 7 book, several hundred pages. Maybe 200 or so. Actually, I recently dug through a pile of old books and stuff and found my 7, and I was like, oh, I had a lot of good notes in there. But just to give you an example, if you're not familiar with the different the books for the courses, and so I was really excited. I passed that, and then I think I stayed at Schwab for, I forgot my license. I don't know if it was a full year, but then. Being in that role, like, I love what I did. I was able to take phone calls all day and help people. So we are assigned different states. And so I had the states that people traditionally I'm not going to say don't care for. They feel like the customers are a little more rough. So I had like the upper Northeast states. I won't mention the specific states because I love y'all. That's my pace. I have no problem dealing with, whomever. But I think I ended up being registered in about maybe 8 or 10 states. You get some regulars that will call in like, "Hey, sell this, buy this." And so I was doing stocks, I was doing ETFs, I was doing mutual funds, anything, moving money out of retirement accounts, depositing money, checking, savings, all that, anything that a licensed registered representative has the capability of doing is what I did. However, I got to a point and I said, I miss the client interaction. Similar to what I said at the beginning of this video, like, I don't care to be talking necessarily to a camera. However, my preference is to be dealing with people in person. And I kind of got to that point as well. And so I left Schwab and actually went back to Chase. Silly me, right? Like, I left because I got robbed. But I went back. But here's the thing. So I went back with a different pretense. So I already had my license. What I was trying to get to acquire when I left Chase was to become a relationship banker. I with my license from Schwab, I had more than enough to qualify, for that banker role. So a spot opened up, came back to Chase. I started at 71st and Benford, where I met another good friend, branch manager there, who also gave me a run for my money, but it was good. It's like once you kind of learn how people operate and how they work, it's easier to deal with him, or to deal with people, I should say. So for me and him, we definitely hit it off. And I remember, I remember one day I went in there. Like I said, I had my license, so I didn't have to get my license, where I think at some point, maybe some of the other bankers were like still studying, because that was kind of their, they're continuing to see what they had to do to get their license, excuse me, to remain in the role. And so I remember my manager telling me, as a registered or relationship banker is what it was called, but essentially what my license allowed me to do as I transitioned into Chase was, I could sell financial products, but I could also, because of the banker aspect, I could do, checking accounts, savings accounts, annuities. We had mortgages and things like that, but typically that was a referral product. I did a lot of car loans. I did a lot of credit cards. I did a lot of business accounts. I did a lot of almost anything in the bank that I was a notary. Had the signature guarantee. Did a lot of stuff. I did a lot of stuff in the bank. And I remember, for those of you that are bankers or know how that operates, you have a base pay, and then you have a incentive, a monthly incentive. And so we were compensated on several products that we would acquire throughout the month. So whether it's checking accounts, credit cards, savings accounts, mortgage referrals, car loans that I would have opened, business accounts, business loans, whatever, we would get paid off of that. And I remember my manager saying, one day we were down, banks have, whether you know it or not, banks have monthly goals. So maybe in 1 month, depending on the size of your branch, depending on, just the district, and also depending on what you did the prior year, your goals are set. And so in 1 month, you may have to open 200 checking accounts. So I remember one time coming into the branch, my manager goes, "So today I need you to get out there." He's like, I'm just going to throw a number out there. We need like 20 checking accounts. He's like, "So I need you to get out there and act like somebody is taking something from pit bull mode. You know how you are." And I didn't even realize, I know how I am, but I didn't realize that it came off that way to other people, so that is something that, and it's not even really, taking things, but it's more so like, I think the disrespect associated with it is probably what really got to me. And I was just like, yeah, that's not about to happen. When situations would arise, I should say. And so, yeah, I was there probably, I don't even remember how long I was there at 71st and Bedford. A little bitty small branch, but it was a tight knit. We had customers that will walk to the bank. Just a lot of good people. And I remember one day coming in, they're like, "Hey, you're gonna go help at 75th and Shadeland. They're down a banker." And I was like, "Why me? Like, what in the world?" I just got used to you guys and started getting used to the customers here. And I'm like, "Well, how long am I going to be there?" "Well, we don't know." And I'm just like, "Y'all know something." You are not telling me everything. So I packed my stuff up, went over to 75th and Shadeland, met the team there. They gave me a desk and was like, "Hey, you're going to work here." And I found out like 2 days later that I was not going back to 71st and Bedford. I was like, "What?" Like, I like that branch. And I'm glad. Like I said, one door closed, another two or three open. 71st and Bedford did a lot on the investment side, but in terms of like foot traffic for the other more variety types of products, we didn't have a whole lot, not back then. So I was actually grateful for that change because my numbers and my monthly incentive reflected that. And so at the branch at 75th and Shadeland, my assistant manager, bless her heart, she passed maybe about, I guess it's probably been about 5 or 6 years ago. She was a funny character. It took a minute to get used to her. And when I first got there, we didn't have a branch manager. We ended up getting, I don't know where he came from, honestly. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know where he came from. But we got a manager, and it's okay. Not one of my favorites, but he was okay. And I actually met a good friend at that branch as well. And she and I are still really, really good friends. That's the one thing I always make sure to keep good people. You know, when you meet people in life, I am a people person. I am a people reader. I feed off of energy that people give. So I've maintained a lot of friendships that to this day I could pick up the phone and be like, you know, if I ever needed anything, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, and they'd be there. And same for me. Like, what do you need? Yep, it's on the way. So I'm fortunate for having made those relationships, and I actually made a lot of relationships at that particular location. And that location was where I was, when I say relationships, I was able to really hone in and tap into building rapport. I think I stayed at 75th and Shadeland the longest of any branch, any bank that I ever worked at. And I got to get into more of a teaching role. I love to teach. I remember my mom still to this day is like, you really should have been a teacher. And I'm like, Mom, I am a teacher. I'm just not a school teacher. So I teach people financial, well, in the bank when I was there, financial literacy. I teach them about credit cards. I teach them about managing money. I teach them about, you know, how to look different reports over and things like that. But I really enjoyed it because I had a lot of younger customers that would come in. So at the time we had, you know, high school checking accounts and college checking accounts. So I would get, you know, I talk to the parents and build a rapport with the parents, you know, whether it's me sitting down with them to help them balance their checkbook, or to open up a, you know, a vacation savings account, or, you know, whatever it was that needed to be done. But building that rapport with them ultimately allowed them, it created the relationship where they would in turn bring their kids in, like, hey, my daughter needs a high school checking account. Hey, my daughter needs a credit card. Hey, my son needs a car remote. Hey, my mother-in-law needs blah, 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 blah. And that's where I really did good on the relationship building. I don't know if they do it anymore, but we have this practice called work the lobby, and I hated it. I hated it. So we would have, when customers would come in, we would be in the lobby like, welcome to Chase, what brings you in today? And to me it was, I'm not a salesperson. I am an I'm here to help you, you know, so I don't want to say a helper, but I'm here to help you. I'm here to help educate. And if that entails me selling you a product, great. But I never was a person to force products down people's throats. And my last manager, that's where he and I collided, because his motto was, if you have a butt in your seat, you need to be selling them something. And I remember one time in particular, I had an older lady, because we worked in a strip mall, and behind the strip mall, well, we're in the corner of the strip mall, and then behind the strip mall, so you had a marsh at one point, which I have no idea what it is now, but then you had, you know, a Chinese food restaurant and blah 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 blah. So behind there was a retirement home. And I remember, you know, the older people would come over and they would ride the bus, and they would come religiously. And I tease people and I tell them, my groups of people, my groups are young people and old people. It's us in the middle that I really have to figure out what day of the week is in terms of whether I can deal with us, because we're just like that. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. So I do really well with, you know, babies on up to about 18, 21, something like that. And then about the 55 and older community. Those are my groups of people. And so I would get all the little old ladies coming over, and they would, you know, even if they, you know, I'd say, hey, you don't have to wait in that line. Come over and sit at my desk and I'll get you whatever you need. And so, you know, I we owe it to the older generation to take care of them, and also the younger generation as well, to help lead, guide, and be an advocate for them, I believe. But specifically with the older generation, the older customers, I should say. I know I built a very close knit relationship with a lot of them, and it was like this little old lady would tell this little old lady would tell this little old lady would tell this little old man, and next thing you know, I've got like 10 or 15, people from the retirement facility like only wanting to work with me, and I was like, uh oh. But it was great because what it allowed. I remember one time my manager calling me. He was behind the teller line, and I had one of my favorite customers. I'll never forget, Miss Thelma. She was at my desk, and she would always come in. She would want to know her balance, and she want her money. So she want however many ones, however many fives, whatever she needed to get through the week. And I would always get her together. She didn't have to do much work. Just come, sit down, tell me what you want. And I remember one time we were balancing her checkbook, and we were probably, I had handled her transaction, bought her money back to her, given her her balance, but her her book and my book didn't match, and we were off, I don't know, like $13 and some change. And so, I'm going through all of her transactions, excuse me, because I am a very I like to balance to the penny as well. I don't necessarily have a checkbook anymore, but my numbers need to match. And it can be account, it could be whatever. I need to, I'm a very analytical person. And I remember him calling me, like literally calling my desk phone after maybe about 15 minutes of her sitting at my desk. Now there's nobody else in the lobby, and if it were a situation where there were someone waiting on me, I would have at least excused myself, went over, talked to them, or maybe see if someone else could have helped them. There was no one in the lobby. And he goes, "So what you doing?" And I'm looking at my phone like, did you really call me in the middle of me trying to help this lady? Like, you see her coming here once a week, you probably have an idea of what she needs. And I'm like, I'm helping her balance her checkbook. He's like, well, she's been there like 15 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm not done yet. Like these older people were like family to me. They weren't, but they were like family. And, it wasn't anything for him to have let me, finish it. And so I kind of just like hung the phone up, and I kept helping her. But what he didn't understand was that although Miss Thelma would come to me every week, usually for the same type of transaction, she also has referred several other people in that same retirement facility to me. So newer accounts. I remember her referring, I think it was like her daughter-in-law, maybe a granddaughter or something like that. Me talking to her about other products that we offer, because all she knew and all that she had was, checking savings. And so once we got into, again, building the rapport, truly getting to know your customer, which he really was, I couldn't understand, because as a manager, that should be something that you're teaching your bankers. Granted, if it's a Friday afternoon and you have a lobby full of people, okay, yeah, let's cut it short a little bit. But on that particular day, I vividly remember there was nobody in the lobby. And that's why I said we kind of bumped heads a little bit, because he was just that type of anal person. And I just, yeah. But yeah, we had a lot of good time there. I met one of the she had been with the bank. I think she just celebrated maybe like, was it, I don't want to say 50 years. I feel like it was 40 years. But like one of the people that the whole, metro area knew. And she was awesome. She was awesome. So, but anyway, banking, like I said, has been, it was great. It was great. I remember I am a, what's the word I want to use? I'm not very prompt when it comes to arriving at different facilities, I shouldn't say facilities, places. Let's just say I'm usually late. And so I remember that being an issue at work. And it was never, like I'm half an hour or 45 minutes. It usually was like 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there. And I remember getting wrote up for it. But I also remember literally maybe a month before I got wrote up a couple times for being late. But I remember I had uncovered a lead. Somebody was just coming in. They didn't have a bank account with us, so we called them a non-customer, but they had a Chase check that they wanted to cash. And this was one of the times that I did pull the person from the lobby. So it definitely has its benefits, but it's all about how you do it and how you approach the person. And I think back when we originally, at least when I was taught to first do it, it was very awkward. A lot of customers were like, I'm just cashing my check. I just want to stay here. And I was like, okay, on to the next. But on several occasions, and it was, again, it's all about how you approach the people. This particular couple, I remember them, like I said, coming in non-customer. I ended up discovering that at one of our credit unions, they had like a couple million in sitting. I think it was a savings or something like that. I'm like, you have how much sitting in a savings? Come here. And took them directly over to our financial advisor. I believe, I don't remember, this was so many years ago, but I believe he set up like an annuity and, just kind of laid out the financial plan for them. And so that was a benefit for me having in our branch. We had a mortgage broker, we had a financial advisor, we had, what was the other guy? We had a business banker. So really almost any product that I could not physically sell due to me not being licensed in that area, I had somebody that I could just say, come over to my desk. I want you to meet my customer, or for me to walk my customer over to their office or to their desk or whatever. And so that was definitely an advantage. That was an advantage compared to some of the other branches that I worked at where we didn't have that. We would have to make a phone call, or there was, the financial advisor served 3 or 4 branches, whatever. And so they were, constantly moving around. And so that was kind of an inconvenience, but working at a branch that was large enough to have one definitely was good, was definitely good. So, but at one point I felt like, although I had a great clientele, like I said, regular clientele. A funny story. I remember I had a couple young kids that I had built relationship with their parents, and they used to come in with their parents. And I remember one in particular, we used to get in trouble in school, and I would tell the person's parent, I'm like, bring her in to see me. And it was like, you almost become family with these people. And so, I talk like, what you doing? What's going on? And it was good. It was good. Like I said, I got to meet a lot of people. They bring family in all the time. And that was kind of hard for me when I got ready to leave, because I had built so many relationships. And one thing, the lady that I was saying that had been at Chase for eons, she and I got really close. And then when she saw what I was capable of doing, she would, when people would come in, she sent them directly to me. Hey, I got somebody coming over. They need to do boom, because she knew I would take care of them. Whereas I think a lot of the other, see how I want to word this, people that I worked with, some of my colleagues that worked on the same side of the branch as me, were either not as efficient, or just maybe moved at a slower pace, or she just didn't feel they were competent. But she definitely referred a lot of people to me, and because of her, me coming to that branch not knowing anyone, it was almost like, hey, if she says she's good, she must be good, because she's been here 50 years and everybody knows her. 40 years, however many years it's been at this point. It's probably been like 45. But I was definitely grateful for her. But like I said, when I got ready to leave the bank, it was hard because I was losing those relationships that I had built over the year. But I knew it was time for me to go. Um, and I remember it was a year to the date prior to me having my youngest daughter. That was my last day working in the bank. I had decided that, it was people don't truly, that you see people in corporate jobs and you like, oh, ooh, but you don't really see the behind the scenes. And on the in the role that I was in was a very, what's the word? Sales oriented, of course. But like at one point we had four bankers, so it's like you have four people competing because we only get paid, X dollars as our salary. And so in many cases we rely on the incentive, because the incentive very well can surpass that base salary, and mine did almost regularly. So it's like when you continue to add more, and then you're taking what you have and you're dividing it. It's already being divided, three ways, but then now you're adding another, and then it just you get to that point, you're like, it's just time to go. Excuse me. At the time, I had back in 2000 and, well, was it 9? Yeah, 2009. Excuse me. I had branched out into real estate. I started my real estate business. And so even though at the time it wasn't even like a people tease and they say, I work a full-time job and part-time business. Mine wasn't even part-time at that time. It was, I call it quarter-time business, because I was still licensed by this federal entity. In working for the bank, there was a lot of red tape. So it was like, okay, we need to know who you're doing business with, what you're doing on this day, what this person's blood type. I mean, it was really, of course, I'm being facetious, but it was very, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I was like, okay, Leneé, this is time for you to transition into business, and so a couple of doors opened up and I started my business in 2009. One of the best decisions that I could have made. And at that time in 2009, I had, I'm sorry. Yeah, I started the business in 2009, but that was prior to me leaving. I left the bank in 2014. I had my son in 2012, so I was still at the bank. And I think that was another thing that kind of made me prolong leaving, was being a mother at this time of three kids. And I can tell you, the fear of leaving what am I trying to say? Your comfortable, regular pay and going into a role where you don't know, am I going to get paid every month? Am I going to get paid every week? Am I going to get, the fear of the unknown. But I had that a little bit, but the opportunities overpowered the fear. The opportunities for me to grow my own business, to step back into more, not back into, but to step into a full-time entrepreneurial role, outweighed any con of doing so. And, I talk to people all the time and they're like, so how did you make that transition? God, that's it. you know, um, I saved and I had a little bit of a cushion, but it was almost, I'm very much of a, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, even if it takes me backing myself into a corner, like this. I'm going to get it done. I am going to get it done. And so that is what happened. I left Chase 2014. And I haven't looked back. Let me rephrase that. I've looked back a couple times, but in terms of like seriously considering going back, I had the coworkers that I built relationships with. I can pick up the phone and call them. I can text them. I used to go out to eat with one all the time. Our kids were really good friends as well. My customers, I do miss them. You know, I see a couple of them from time to time. I see a few on social media. But I feel like me stepping back into the entrepreneur role allows me to help a larger group of people. And so at that time, it was just real estate. It wasn't until the last 3 years that I decided I am going to, add the motivational and the leadership services, because I see a need. I see a disconnect in a lot of corporations, and I shouldn't say in colleges, but in corporations and the upper management, the lower management, the disconnect and the, you know, it's just, there's just a lot that can be done there. And so that's where I'm going with that. And then in terms of the collegiate market, it's helping kids transition from the college role into adulthood. I've been there. I have kids that are in that role right now. I have, so I've got a lot of knowledge that I've kind of been holding on to. And I've had a lot of people say, you need to start a YouTube channel. And I just, I was like, maybe. But I truly see a need. I know this is a long video, so I apologize, but I wanted to, kind of get a lot of the initial things out. What I'm hoping within this channel is that I can help somebody else who has doubt in terms of how they too can transition from whether it's a corporate role, whether it's whatever it is, transition from their job, if that is their desire to go into the entrepreneur world, that I can use my skill set and help them do that. I've done, since leaving the bank, in addition to that, I've done a lot of general business coaching. I teach Spanish. I do a little bit of everything, but I can say that my passion is real estate, and then the motivational and leadership services. Here very soon, we will get back into flipping. Hence, part of my my handle on some of my social medias, the Flipping Mama. So it's the flipping part is real estate. Mama is, I'm showing, I'm sorry, it's a Flipping Fit Mama. So getting back into flipping properties, that's what's next on our agenda. The fitness aspect is something else that I'm getting back into. These last couple of years have been rough, I think, for a lot of us. And so it's almost like, kind of getting back to, I don't want to say getting back to my norm, but getting back to a norm in terms of, the fitness aspect as well. So I am going to share as much light and love here, which I think the world definitely needs. A lot of us need it. I want to be a resource to as many people as I can. Like I said, we've in real estate, hadn't even got a chance to really talk about that, but in real estate, we've done deals currently 13 states, and that is from 2009. And so it's, we're just kind of ramping things back up, but I want to be able to share here with you guys, this community, as much as possible. I will also we'll have interviews where, bring other experts on, other people that can, share what it is that they do, and just hope to be able to help a large group of people. And it's not only people that are either entrepreneurs or are aspiring entrepreneurs. Like I said, there's going to be an aspect, the familial aspect. So parents, because I have 4 kids, so I've raised, so we have a little bit of everything going on in our house. So, we can talk about, the younger kids and the older kids, and I can share, different experiences that I've had, whether it's with their schools, friends, family, whatever I can share to help is what I'm going to do. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this long video. I hope that, I can continue to just inspire, and just be a resource. So you will see this when you guys watch this video. It will be Wednesday, January 15, 2025. And it is my goal to get a video out every week. Likely will maybe drop some sort of teaser as to what the next video is going to be. It might be on this video, might not. And then eventually I'll probably start going live with some of the projects and things that we're working on. So I thank you guys. If you are here at this point, we are over an hour. Wow. I was like, this video is only gonna be like half an hour. I don't even think I'm gonna get to half an hour. Baby, it says an hour. Okay. We've been on here an hour. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hold you guys for that long. But I'm thankful. I look forward to seeing what all the greatness that this channel is going to do. And I'm excited to share it with you guys. So until then, I'm gonna get off and I will talk to you guys later.